The highest stone to be placed on the Great Pyramid was encased in gold and had to be moved 480 feet above the ground. But before it could be placed, 2.3 million other stones had to be moved and placed beforehand. Some of them weighed as much as 80 tons. And according to ancient records, this entire structure was built in only 20 years. To reach this deadline, one block had to be placed every 4 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is how they likely did it. The Great Pyramid wasn't made from a single material. It was an assembly of many different types of stones. Common limestone averaged 2.5 tons each and made up 98% of the pyramid's total mass. Turba limestone was the smooth white outer shell, averaging 8 tons each. And deep within the internal chambers of the Great Pyramid, right above the King's Chamber, sits 43 granite beams, all weighing between 30 to 80 tons each. Now, to really understand how they lifted these massive beams 160 feet above the ground, we have to look at how the standard blocks were handled first. If you try to pull a 2.5 ton stone directly on sand, you would need 60 men just to move it. Place the stone on top of a wooden sled, and now you need 40. Place the wooden sled on top of wooden tracks, and now you only need 20. Add wooden cylindrical logs inside of the tracks, and congratulations, you've reduced friction so much to the point where you only need 4 men. Now, in reality, the terrain between the main quarry and the pyramid wasn't perfectly flat. Instead, there was a steady 8-degree slope climb. So instead of only 4 men, we actually need 12. Once our team arrives at the base of the pyramid, the pulling method has to change. Pulling a stone up a 51.8-degree slope, which is the angle of the pyramid, is a physical impossibility. To overcome this challenge, Egyptians likely took the same wooden track system, but this time anchored it directly on the face of the pyramid. Doing this does leave a channel where the white casing limestone isn't yet placed, but that's not a problem because we can easily fill that section later on. At the very bottom of the tracks, you have a loading platform. To place the stone on it, the team can no longer pull in the same direction because now the pyramid is blocking their way. So instead, they would cleverly wrap a rope around 2 fixed posts and then wrap that same rope around the back pins of the sled. And now the team can pull in the other way and slide the stone right onto the platform. The platform contained 2 wooden shoes precisely cut at a 51.8-degree angle, allowing it to fit and glide perfectly along the tracks. Ropes from the platform extended all the way up to the current level of the pyramid and would wrap around wooden logs, but these were not pulleys, they were simply static logs that allowed the ropes to change direction and come back down to a heavy wooden beam with 2 counterweight platforms on each side. Workers would then step on these platforms, and once their combined weight overcomes the pull of gravity plus the friction, the counterweight platforms would begin to glide down while the stone would soar upwards. Once the stone reaches the top, a final team can now pull it towards its final destination. To reset the system, 1 or 2 workers would simply step onto the empty stone platform, which lifted the empty counterweight platforms back to the top, ready for the next load. To make it easier for workers to reach the top, 2 staircases were likely built on each side of the elevator. Now, if we add a few more of these elevator stations, the 1 block every 4-minute deadline becomes a walk in the park. But the biggest enemy of this entire system is, once again, friction. Wrapping rope around static wood is a friction-making machine. In our current setup, it would take 52 men to lift a single 2.5-ton stone. To solve this, the Egyptians likely swapped wood for polished limestone, and by occasionally lubricating it with water, the friction would drop by more than half, bringing the number of workers down to just 30. But wouldn't the tower simply tip over? The answer is yes. unless you anchor them directly onto the pyramid's core. Now they're stable and cannot go anywhere. Now for the heavier stones, a much larger elevator would have been built on the eastern face. But to lift an 80-ton weight using people alone, you would need 2 skyscrapers of 350 workers on both sides. Simply not possible. So instead, they likely used smaller stones as the counterweight. The southern stations would lift the smaller stones one by one and then move them and place them onto the eastern station. Once the combined weight of all the smaller stones exceeded the pull of gravity plus the friction, the counterweight platforms would descend while the heavy granite stone would ascend. Once the stone reached the top, a team of about 96 men can now begin to pull it towards the king's chamber. But there's a final problem. How do you set the stone in its final position when there's tracks in a sled stuck underneath it? You can't just remove it from the sled and slide 80 tons of granite directly onto the pyramid's surface. The friction would require an army of at least 1,000 men just to move it. Instead, they likely used a transition system. A new set of tracks were laid on both sides of the stone with a heavy wooden gantry sitting on top. Ropes connected to the beams above would drop down to 2 wooden planks carved to fit perfectly beneath the stone's handles sticking out on each side. Now these handles aren't just a theory. We know they exist because of the excavations that Howard Weiss did in the 1800s. Workers would then begin to pull on the gantry, and as the stone moved past the end of the initial tracks, the wooden sled beneath it would drop, transferring the entire 80-ton load onto the gantry. With the stone now suspended, the team can simply glide it towards its final destination. But now for the final challenge, how do you lower it? You can't just cut the ropes. 80 tons of fallen granite would shatter everything below. So instead of connecting the ropes directly to the beams above, they would wrap them around the beams multiple times, and at the end of each rope, 2 men can hold the entire 80-ton weight all by themselves. It sounds impossible, but it's 100% backed by physics. It's called the Capstan Effect, and it's exactly how the Egyptians docked their heavy ships. When you wrap rope around an object multiple times, friction begins to multiply. Wrap it once, the 2 men will feel around 18,000 pounds. Wrap it twice, the men will feel 1,800 pounds. Wrap it 3 times, 180 pounds. 4 times, 18 pounds. 5 times, 1.8 pounds. At this stage, you don't even need anyone to hold the ropes anymore. The friction itself locks the stone in place. But the goal isn't to lock it in place, the goal is to safely lower it. By wrapping the ropes 4 times, both men can now easily hold on to 9 pounds of tension each. And once they begin to let go and slowly feed the ropes, the stone will precisely descend into its final position. This entire process was repeated 42 times until all the heavy granite beams were precisely seated above the king's chamber. With the heaviest section of the pyramid now completed, all that remained was to continue lifting and placing the smaller limestone blocks layer by layer until the summit was finally reached. Once the golden capstone was set, the wooden tracks were dismantled and the final white casing limestone were finally set in place. The very same techniques and counterweight elevators would be recycled and reused for the next pyramid, built only 30 years later.